What's up, design family, and welcome back to another episode of Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you back on the channel. Before we get started, if you guys are not subscribed, please consider doing so. We put out great content on a week-to-week basis, and it would mean the absolute world to us to have you along for the ride. Fashion, as you guys know, is always in flux. It's always changing. Times change, and so do our clothes. Sportswear itself has seen a meteoric rise over the last 10 years and has been thrust into the mainstream by brands like Lululemon, Athleta, Alphalete, and Gymshark. And with this rise, trends have come and gone. And in this episode, we're looking at 5 sportswear trends that we would have collectively been better without. Hey guys, and welcome to Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you here. On this channel, we discuss all things sports fashion, graphic design, manufacturing, and technology. We'll discuss key topics, answer pressing questions, and provide actionable steps on starting your own product line. If you're interested in any of the above topics, stick around. You're in for a good one. So there are 5 key sportswear trends that honestly are better forgotten and never repeated. And the first of which is going to be the lingerie-inspired sportswear. You've definitely seen this type of sportswear, and usually it's a lot of these high fashion emulating sportswear brands. I think of a platform like Carbon 38 that tend to trend more towards this direction, at least in the last couple of years. This type of sportswear is typically characterized with its corset, lace-up, structure, and look. It gathers a lot of its influences from women's traditional base layer garments. And on the surface, this may seem like a good idea. After all, a lot of the trends that we see going into the sportswear space get their start from the more mass market appeal of the goods that we buy on a day-to-day basis. Lingerie-inspired sportswear actually uses silhouettes that are, 1, far too revealing, 2, they're unstable and generally impractical for sports use to even be considered as sportswear, let alone as practical and functional sportswear. French cut leggings are a clear example of how at fault this trend can and has been. The trend itself gets its look from traditional hosiery, but it looks a lot more awkward than it is flattering. For one, it calls way too much attention to the pelvic region, the hip region, in a way that doesn't flatter or even streamline the figure. Also, the excess use of lace-ups and all of these string-like features on lingerie-inspired sportswear just creates garments that are one wrong move away from disaster, which can keep a user or wearer at the edge all the time. And I think when you're conscious of these details, I think it definitely defeats the purpose of these details in the first place, especially when it comes to clothing that's meant to enhance and kind of uplift your life. Number 2 on our list is our patent leather legging. Again, this is a product trend in sportswear that gets its start or influence from the high fashion space and is a clear representation of a once functional product taking on a completely impractical essence that completely diminishes the reason that that product is made. So patent leather is also generally known to have little to no stretch whatsoever. And even if you're using the modified type of patent leather that you see a lot on these casual fitness leggings, the performance, the actual core reason why you buy a pair of leggings for the stretch, for the flexibility, is almost completely diminished by adding this patent leather finish onto the garment. Also, patent leather leggings are known to be extremely unbreathable. The PVC surface finish that's applied onto the leggings to give them that patent leather look actually closes up all of the pores of the fabric, meaning that 1, it's no longer stretchable, 2, it's also no longer breathable. That's why a lot of these patent leather leggings you'll find are very bad in terms of heat regulation. They trap heat in, they're also extremely unbreathable, and they're very, very bad at sweat wicking, which again, these are all things that you would like to see in a performance-based item. Number 3, we have the cut-out waistband leggings. And there are a couple of variations of this trend, and I'm going to focus on 2 specific ones. The first is the simple rectangular waistband cutout that you see. It can happen as one large cutout or multiple cutouts. And the second one is meant to emulate more of a G-string high rider look. If you think about the early 2000s, this is the look that it's trying to emulate. Both of these trends are extremely tacky and both are equally at fault, and they both remove the purpose of a waistband completely, which is to support and streamline the hips into the torso, creating a more flattering, elongated look to the wearer that also feels more well put together and more composed. The cutout effect itself actually cuts off completely that streamlined look and even calls way more attention than it should to the width of the hips. This is going to do two things. One, it's going to make the wearer look a lot more chunky. By calling attention to the width just in that portion, you're not necessarily streamlining the figure. Also, if and since this is an area of high tension, if the wearer is not a 0% body fat model, which, face it, most people are not, it's going to create up this sort of stringy, tied up ham look, which again is definitely not the most flattering look. Number 4 on the list is going to be sportswear that is overly focused on functionality. And although I've stressed the importance of sportswear and its functionality, sometimes brands have taken this concept way too far. Putting functionality and usability at the forefront of the design sometimes actually defeats the purpose of that functionality. When you have a design with more cargo pockets and things to actually put in these cargo pockets, the essence and purity of the functional apparel is completely lost and diminished. Also, not every fabric that you use needs to be an anti-stain, high-density, antimicrobial, anti-flame retardant fabric. This again defeats the purpose of using functional fabrics in sportswear by actually raising the price way too high and offering way too much for people that may not need that type of functionality. Instead of pricing your customers out of the market, consider their needs carefully. Chances are, if a customer is looking for a sports textile, it's not going to need to be flame retardant. So make sure that you understand the end user carefully and that you're actually implementing the functional finishes that they would want. Number 5 is going to be the hooded singlet. This was a mainstay at any Gold's Gym or 24-hour fitness in the mid-2010s. And the concept here is essentially to blend a lightweight t-shirt material with an extremely deeply cut singlet that barely covers your left nipple with an extremely flimsy hood that will barely stay up whether it's on or off. This combination or this amalgamation is a travesty and should definitely never be repeated. Don't get me wrong, I definitely understand the purpose of a singlet. It's to show more skin. This can definitely work when it comes to gym performance as it allows the wearer to bear more skin, and that can definitely up your motivation as you work out. And I think sportswear has the ability to do that, and I'm all for that. And when it comes to a hoodie, typically we'd wear a hoodie to warm up. The excess heat allows us to warm up faster, to get the blood pumping, to get nutrients into our muscles, and just to be in a situation or to get primed to work out much faster. But that's not going to happen with a singlet that barely covers half of anything, and a hood that is made out of material so thin that's barely thicker than a piece of paper. Well, that is it, guys. That's been 5 sportswear trends that should have never happened. And I'm curious to know if you guys disagree with any of the 5 that I've mentioned in this video. Let me know in the comments below. Love to engage you guys in a conversation on this. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of Fittdesign TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.